Opening. The question of life's meaning. Have you ever paused for just a moment and wondered, if life is so short, what truly matters? Time slips through our fingers more quickly than we realize. One breath in, one breath out, already gone. A day passes, a year fades, and suddenly we look back and see how much has changed. The truth is, time doesn't wait for anyone. It moves quietly and relentlessly. And with it, everything we cling to begins to fade. Think about it. Youth doesn't last. The body that feels strong today will grow old tomorrow. Relationships shift, friends move away, loved ones pass, and even the closest bonds transform over time. Fame, wealth, even the identity we build so carefully, all of it eventually dissolves. And yet, most of us live as if these things will last forever. The Buddha saw this clearly over 2,000 years ago. He called it anicca, impermanence. It's not just a philosophical idea, it's the very law of existence. From the smallest dust particle floating in sunlight to the vastest star burning in the galaxy. From a fleeting thought in your mind to a lifelong friendship you once believed unbreakable, everything changes. Nothing remains. But here's the paradox. Even though we live in a world that is constantly shifting, we resist. We fight against it. We try to hold on to what cannot be held. We build careers, collect possessions, polish reputations, and cling to roles, hoping they'll stay. And when they don't, when life inevitably moves on, we suffer. And so the real question is not simply, how much time do we have? Because no one can truly answer that. The real question is, what are we doing with the time we've been given? Imagine, just for a moment, if today were your last day, what would still feel unfinished? What words would you wish you had spoken? What dreams would you regret leaving behind? This is not meant to scare you, it's meant to awaken you. Because there's something profoundly liberating in remembering that life is short. It reminds us that every breath, every moment is a gift that will never return again. The Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome understood this too. They reminded their students to live with intention, to stop wasting precious energy on things beyond control, like loss, aging, or death. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." The Buddha, however, takes this wisdom even deeper. He doesn't just ask us to accept change with a brave face. He asks us to truly understand it, to let the truth of impermanence reshape the way we see, the way we act, the way we live, moment by moment. Impermanence is not here to make us hopeless. It's here to wake us up. It's not about denying pain, pretending sadness isn't real, or forcing ourselves into false optimism. It's about meeting life as it is, with open eyes and an open heart. When we see clearly that everything passes, we stop clinging, we stop postponing, we begin to live with clarity. But let me ask you something more personal. How much of your life right now is spent chasing things that you secretly know won't last? A promotion, a title, more money, more recognition, the approval of people who may not even notice you a year from now. We chase and chase and chase like thirsty travelers running after a mirage in the desert. But every time we reach out, it fades. And still, that voice inside whispers, just a little more, just one more achievement, just one more step, and then you'll finally be enough. But will we? Will we ever be enough by the standards of a world that itself is constantly shifting? Or is this endless chase itself the very reason why we're exhausted, why we're anxious, why we feel like life is slipping away without meaning? The Buddha invites us to step off that treadmill, to stop running after permanence in a world where nothing is permanent. And in that pause, in that stillness, something radical begins to happen. We realize that we don't have to cling so tightly. We don't have to control every detail. We don't have to hold life in a fist. We can finally let it rest gently in our hands. And here's the irony. The moment we stop clinging, life doesn't slip away. It becomes richer, fuller, clearer. Because when you know that every moment will pass, you begin to see its beauty more vividly. The laughter of a friend, the warmth of sunlight on your face, the quiet rhythm of your own breath. None of it lasts, and that is exactly why it matters. Impermanence, then, isn't an enemy, it's a teacher, a mirror reflecting back the truth of life itself, fragile, fleeting, precious beyond measure. So the question returns, if life is so short, what truly matters? Is it the things you own, the titles you carry, or is it how deeply you live in each breath, how fully you love, how clearly you see? This teaching of impermanence is not meant for monks alone. It's for you, for me, for anyone who has ever felt the sting of time passing. It's a reminder that the meaning of life isn't hidden somewhere in the future, waiting to be found. It's right here, in the only place life ever exists, this moment, right now. And maybe that's the gift of remembering that life is short. It gives us permission to stop chasing, to stop waiting, to stop postponing our real lives, to step into the present with honesty and with courage. Because the goal was never to live forever. The goal was always to live wisely, fully, and free. Part 1. Impermanence and Suffering. We spend so much of our lives chasing stability. Think about it. How much effort have you put into building a life that feels secure? A career, a home, a reputation, relationships that you hope will last forever. And yet, no matter how hard we try, life doesn't stop shifting beneath our feet. Nothing ever stands still. This is the heart of suffering. We keep trying to make permanent what is, by its very nature, impermanent. Maybe you felt this yourself. You work for years to achieve something, and for a brief moment you feel satisfied, only to realize the feeling fades. You pour your heart into a relationship, believing it will complete you, but people change, circumstances shift, and suddenly what felt unshakable slips away. Even our own bodies, the vessels we live in every single day, remind us constantly that nothing stays the same. Wrinkles, gray hair, illness, the aches that come with time. And here's the painful truth. It isn't the change itself that breaks us. Change is inevitable. What breaks us is the way we fight against it. The problem isn't that time runs out, it always will. The real problem is how we choose to use the time we have. Imagine for a moment that today were your last day. How much of what you're worrying about right now would truly matter? The missed emails, the extra dollars, the opinions of people who don't really know you, would those still feel important? Or would you wish you had spent more time being present, being kind, truly living? This isn't just a Buddhist idea. The Stoic philosophers of ancient Rome wrestled with this same truth. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher, would remind himself every morning, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." The Stoics taught that death should not be feared because it is simply part of nature. What matters is how we live while we are here. They believed in focusing only on what we can control, our actions, our choices, our integrity, and releasing the rest. That's powerful wisdom, especially in a world as uncertain as ours. But Buddhism takes this insight a step further. The Buddha didn't just say, accept change and live bravely. He taught that by deeply understanding impermanence, we can actually be free from suffering. Not just endure it, not just grit our teeth and bear it, but rise above it. Let's pause here. What would your life look like if you could live in a way that wasn't controlled by fear of loss? If you could love fully without clinging? If you could work with passion without your identity being chained to success or failure? I remember once sitting with an elderly man who had lost nearly everything: his wife, his health, most of his friends. And yet, as he spoke, there was a lightness about him. He wasn't bitter, he wasn't broken. Instead, he said something I'll never forget. "Everything I thought I needed, I've already lost. And yet here I am, still breathing. And for the first time, I know that every breath is enough." That's the kind of freedom the Buddha was pointing to. Not a freedom that denies pain, but a freedom that can carry it without being crushed. Because here's the truth. When we finally stop clinging to the illusion of permanence, we discover that life is richer than we ever imagined. We stop measuring our worth by what we can hold on to and start measuring it by how deeply we can show up right here, right now. It's easy to forget this in daily life. The world tells us constantly to build, to achieve, to secure, to cling. But if you really look, everything you cling to will eventually change. The house you live in, the job title on your business card, even the face you see in the mirror, they are all passing. This could sound depressing, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to wake us up. Because the beauty of impermanence is that it shows us what really matters. The smile of someone you love, the sound of laughter echoing in a kitchen, the feeling of sunlight on your skin after a long winter. These things are fleeting, and that's exactly why they are precious. Buddhism teaches that suffering doesn't come from life being impermanent. Suffering comes from forgetting that fact. When we expect permanence in an impermanent world, disappointment is inevitable. But when we understand impermanence deeply, suffering softens and life becomes a gift. So maybe the question isn't, how can I make things last? Maybe the real question is, how can I live in a way that honors the fact that they won't? When you realize this, your priorities begin to shift. You start caring less about chasing things that vanish and more about being awake in the moments you have. You stop waiting for the perfect time to live and realize the perfect time is always now. And this is the invitation of impermanence. It doesn't demand despair, it demands presence. It asks us to wake up, to live with intention, to stop postponing the life that is right here in front of us. Because the truth is simple. Everything changes. Nothing lasts forever. But within that truth lies a doorway, not to hopelessness, but to freedom. Part 2. The Ego and the False Self. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, who is it that's doing all the chasing in your life? Chasing recognition, chasing success, chasing approval? Most of us never pause long enough to really ask that question. We assume it's just us, our true self, working hard, striving, pushing forward. But here's the twist. The one that's chasing so desperately isn't really you. It's something you've built, piece by piece, out of fear and desire. It's what we call the ego. The ego is like a shadow you've been carrying around, whispering in your ear. You need to prove yourself. You're not enough yet. You must be remembered. It creates a story about who you are, a story you then spend your whole life defending. You shape how you look, what you say, how you act, all to protect this fragile image. And yet, deep down, there's a reason why so many of us feel exhausted. Not because we're weak, not because we're failing, but because we're trying to hold up something that was never real to begin with. The Buddha saw this clearly. He taught that what we call the self is not a solid thing. It's not some permanent core hiding inside of us. Instead, it's just a collection of 5 constantly changing elements, what he called the 5 aggregates. Form, the body, always aging, always shifting. Feeling, the waves of pleasure and pain that rise and fall. Perception, the mind labeling, judging, categorizing. Mental formations, the habits, reactions, and emotions that shape our patterns. Consciousness, the awareness that notices, always moving, never fixed. None of these are stable, none of them last, and none of them truly belong to us. Think about it. Your body changes every moment, from the cells in your skin to the beating of your heart. Your feelings, joy, sadness, frustration, come and go like weather patterns. Your perceptions can be wrong, distorted by bias. Even your habits shift over time. And consciousness itself is not fixed. It's a flowing stream of awareness, not a solid stone. So, if everything we call me is constantly changing, then what exactly are we protecting when we defend our ego? The truth is, the ego has no lasting center. It's not a soul. It's not eternal. It's just a psychological process, a set of stories fueled by wanting and fear. It rises and falls, just like everything else. Even modern psychology hints at this. Carl Jung spoke of masks, the personas we wear to survive in society. They're useful, but they're not the whole picture. Neuroscience, too, suggests that what we call the self is really just a network of brain processes, stitched together by memory and narrative. And yet, because we fear being no one, we keep clinging to the story of being someone. The ego convinces us that without its constant striving, we would vanish. That if we're not achieving, not proving, not remembered, we are nothing. But here's the liberation. When you see clearly that the ego is only a story, only a shadow, something shifts. You no longer have to protect it so fiercely. You no longer have to win at all costs or shape every moment to defend an identity that's crumbling anyway. It's like carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. For years, you've believed it was essential, that it defined who you are. But when you finally look inside and realize it's just a collection of burdens you don't need, you can set it down. And suddenly, you can breathe again. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you're at a party and you make a small mistake. Maybe you mispronounce a word, spill your drink, or forget someone's name. Immediately, your ego panics. Everyone noticed. They're judging me. I look stupid. Hours later, you're still replaying it in your head. But here's the reality. Most people didn't even notice. And those who did, they forgot within minutes. The only one still carrying it is your ego, desperate to protect its fragile image of perfection. Now imagine what life would feel like if you didn't have to keep feeding that voice. Imagine being free to speak, to love, to live, without the constant weight of needing to prove yourself. This doesn't mean we stop caring. It doesn't mean we become cold or indifferent. It means we see through the illusion. We understand that the self we defend so anxiously is not who we really are. So who are we then? The Buddha didn't point to a new story, a new identity to cling to. He pointed to something deeper, a spacious awareness, a stillness beneath the stories. When you're no longer trapped by the need to be someone, you begin to discover the peace of simply being. And here's the paradox. The less you cling to a fixed identity, the more authentic you actually become. Because now your words don't come from fear. Your actions don't come from the hunger to be noticed. They come from presence, from kindness, from clarity. So let me ask you, what story about yourself have you been defending all your life? The story of being successful? The story of being worthy? The story of not being enough? What if you didn't need to protect that story anymore? What if you could lay it down like that heavy backpack and finally rest? The path of Buddhism isn't about erasing your personality. It's not about becoming a blank slate. It's about freedom. Freedom from the endless cycle of proving, defending, and clinging to an image that was never real. When you see that, something beautiful happens. You begin to live more lightly. You stop chasing recognition and start tasting the richness of the present. You realize that the one who was struggling so hard to be someone was never really you. And in that realization, peace is not far away. Part 3. Letting go isn't loss, it's freedom. Most of us are taught from the time we're young that losing something is a tragedy. We lose a job, a relationship, a dream we've been holding on to, and it feels like life has gone wrong. Loss in our culture almost always equals pain. But what if that moment of losing isn't the end? What if, instead, it's the beginning of something real? What if letting go doesn't leave us empty, but actually opens the door to a kind of freedom we've never known? This is where Buddhist wisdom turns our entire perspective upside down. Because according to the Buddha, the root of suffering isn't in having too little, it's in craving too much. The Pali word he used was tanha, which means thirst or craving. It's that deep, restless hunger inside us that wants to hold on to things we simply cannot keep. And it's not just about money or possessions. Craving runs much deeper than that. It includes the urge to keep existing forever, to protect our fragile identity at all costs, and even, strangely enough, the wish to disappear when life feels unbearable. In other words, we're constantly grasping at experiences, at relationships, at identities, even at our own bodies, trying to make them mine. And yet, the reality is clear. None of it lasts. None of it was ever truly ours to begin with. Think about it. Have you ever wanted something so badly only to finally get it and realize the satisfaction didn't last? Maybe it was a promotion, a car, a piece of recognition, or even someone's love. At first, it feels like the answer to all your restlessness, but soon the craving returns. You need the next thing, and then the next. It never stops. The Buddha pointed directly to this. Not getting what one wants, that is suffering. But even getting what one wants, that too is suffering. Why? Because the craving itself carries the seed of pain. It keeps us in a cycle where nothing is ever enough. And here's the liberating insight. When we finally see that the problem isn't out there in the world, it's in our endless wanting, then something begins to shift. To let go is not to give up. It's not about throwing away everything you care about. It's about loosening the tight fist of craving and allowing life to breathe again. It's about realizing that the things you thought you owned were never truly yours. They were just passing through, like clouds across the sky. Let me share an image that helps me. Imagine holding sand in your hand. If you squeeze it tightly, trying to keep every grain, it slips through your fingers. But if you relax your hand, if you hold it gently, the sand stays. Life is like that. The more tightly we grasp, the more we lose. But when we learn to let go, we discover a different kind of belonging, one that doesn't depend on control. And maybe you've experienced this too. Think about a time when something you thought you couldn't live without was taken away. At first, it broke you. You grieved, you resisted, you felt like the ground was pulled out from under you. But slowly, as days and months passed, you began to notice something else. You were lighter. You discovered strength you didn't know you had. You began to see possibilities that weren't visible before. That's the hidden gift of letting go. Even ancient philosophies outside Buddhism wrestled with this truth. The skeptics doubted whether we could ever fully possess or control the world, while hedonists tried to solve the problem by chasing pleasure endlessly. But both of those paths eventually run dry. Buddhism instead points to a different way, not to keep feeding the self, but to see clearly that the self we're clinging to isn't solid to begin with. And here's where the transformation happens. Letting go doesn't make you cold. It doesn't make you detached in the sense of being numb or uncaring. True letting go is warm, spacious. It gives you room to breathe. When you no longer have to fight to hold on to everything, you finally have the freedom to live fully. Imagine the peace of sitting quietly, not haunted by the past or anxious about the future. Imagine being with someone you love, not because you fear losing them, but simply because this moment together is precious. Imagine facing life's inevitable changes with a calm heart, knowing that you don't need to control what was never yours to control. This is the freedom that comes from seeing impermanence clearly. The freedom of a heart no longer bound by craving. So, the next time you feel loss pressing down on you, I want you to remember this. Maybe it's not loss at all. Maybe it's life opening a door you couldn't see before. Maybe it's an invitation to step into a lighter, freer way of being. Because letting go isn't the end. It's the beginning of real freedom. Part 4. Living mindfully in each moment. When we hear the word impermanence, many of us immediately think of loss. We think of endings, things slipping through our fingers, people we love fading away, dreams dissolving before our eyes. And at first, that thought feels heavy, maybe even depressing. But here's the truth. Impermanence was never meant to make us hopeless. It was meant to wake us up, to remind us that life is not something to postpone, but something to live right here, right now. Every single breath you take is unique. This moment, this exact heartbeat, this exact inhale has never existed before and will never exist again. Think about that. Each breath is like a snowflake, delicate, unrepeatable, gone the moment it lands. The question is, are you here to experience it, or are you lost in yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's worries? Most of us live in a kind of trance. We replay old conversations in our heads, the things we should have said, the mistakes we wish we hadn't made. Or we rush ahead into the future, imagining problems that haven't even happened yet. Meanwhile, the present, the only place life actually exists, slips by unnoticed. That's why the practice of mindfulness is so powerful. Mindfulness isn't some exotic skill you only learn on a meditation cushion. It's the simple, radical act of coming back to this moment, over and over again. It's noticing your breath as it rises and falls. It's feeling the ground beneath your feet when you walk. It's listening, really listening, when someone is speaking to you. And here's the beautiful part. When you live this way, ordinary moments stop being ordinary. Washing dishes becomes a chance to feel the warmth of water on your skin. Drinking tea becomes a moment of quiet joy. Sitting in traffic becomes an invitation to breathe instead of fume. Mindfulness transforms life, not by adding anything new, but by helping us see what was always here. I remember once sitting with a teacher who said, "The miracle isn't walking on water or walking on fire. The miracle is simply walking on the earth." Those words stayed with me, because really, how often do we miss the miracle of simply being alive? Let me ask you, how many times have you been with someone you love, but your mind was somewhere else? On your phone, on your worries, on your to-do list. And later, you realized that moment was gone, never to return. Mindfulness is how we stop missing our own lives. It doesn't mean life suddenly becomes free of pain. You will still feel sadness, still face challenges. But mindfulness changes the way you meet those moments. Instead of drowning in them, you learn to notice them, breathe with them, and let them pass, just like clouds drifting across the sky. This practice also protects us from one of the greatest dangers of modern life, postponing our happiness. How many times have you told yourself, "I'll be happy when I get the promotion, when I pay off the debt, when I lose the weight, when I find the right person"? But notice, there's always another when. Mindfulness breaks that cycle. It whispers, happiness isn't later. Happiness is here, in this breath, in this moment, if you choose to notice it. I'll give you a simple example you can try right now. Pause. Take a slow breath in. Feel the air filling your lungs. Now exhale, feeling your shoulders soften. That's it. Nothing mystical, nothing complicated. But did you notice? For just a moment, you weren't trapped in yesterday or tomorrow. You were here, present, alive. That's the gift of mindfulness. It helps us stop rushing past our own lives. It teaches us not to postpone what matters. Because the truth is, life is happening now. Not when things are perfect, not when your plans finally work out, but in this imperfect, fleeting, precious moment. So the next time you catch yourself lost in the past or racing toward the future, ask yourself, what's here, right now? Maybe it's the sound of birds outside your window. Maybe it's the feeling of your heartbeat. Maybe it's the simple fact that you are breathing, and that's enough. This doesn't mean we stop planning for the future or learning from the past. It means we don't get trapped there. We use the past as a teacher, the future as a guide, but we live in the present as our true home. Because in the end, the present is all we ever really have. So let impermanence be your teacher, not your enemy. Let it remind you that every moment is a gift, fragile, fleeting, irreplaceable. Don't wait, Don't postpone. Don't let the beauty of this breath pass unnoticed. Live mindfully, live fully, live now. Part 5. The Noble Eightfold Path, Living with Clarity, Not Control. When people hear the phrase letting go, many imagine weakness. They think it means giving up, walking away, or refusing to care. But true letting go is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's living in a way that is natural, unforced, and free from the constant burden of protecting the fragile image we call the self. The Buddha understood that life is filled with change, with uncertainty, with suffering that comes from clinging. But instead of leaving us in despair, he offered a path, not a set of rules to obey blindly, but a way of living that brings clarity and freedom. He called it the Noble Eightfold Path. This path is not a checklist you complete once and forget about. It's more like a wheel where each spoke supports the others. Together, they create balance and strength. And at the heart of it, the path is about living wisely, not through control, but through clarity. Let's walk through it together. First, right view. This isn't about memorizing Buddhist teachings or agreeing with dogma. It's about seeing reality as it truly is. Seeing impermanence. Seeing that suffering comes from craving. Seeing that there is no fixed self to protect. When you begin to look at your own life through this lens, things start to shift. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What can I learn from the nature of things as they are?" Second, right intention. This is the quiet compass of the heart. It's about asking yourself, what is driving me? Is it fear, greed, and anger? Or is it kindness, compassion, and wisdom? When your intention is clear and rooted in goodwill, your words and actions naturally begin to change. Third, right speech. Words are powerful. They can heal or they can harm. They can build trust or break it. Right speech means using language that is true, kind, and necessary. Before speaking, the Buddha asked us to pause and consider, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? Imagine how different our world would be if we all practiced this, on social media, in our workplaces, in our families. Fourth, right action. This is about aligning our behavior with our values. It's not about guilt or punishment, it's about living in a way that doesn't create regret. We avoid harming others, stealing, or misusing our sexuality, not because someone told us to, but because these actions disturb our own peace of mind. When our actions are clean, our hearts are lighter. Fifth, right livelihood. This extends the same awareness into how we earn a living. Does our work help reduce suffering, or does it create more of it? Are we contributing to the well-being of others, or profiting at their expense? Right livelihood doesn't demand perfection, but it asks us to consider the ripple effects of what we do each day. Sixth, right effort. Not all effort leads to wisdom. This isn't about working harder, hustling more, or burning yourself out. It's about tending the garden of your mind, nurturing wholesome qualities like patience, honesty, and compassion, and gently but firmly pulling out the weeds of anger, jealousy, and greed before they take root. When our actions are clean, our hearts are lighter. Seventh, right mindfulness. This is the practice we explored earlier, returning to the present again and again, paying attention to your body, your feelings, your thoughts without judgment. Mindfulness doesn't change what happens to you, but it changes the way you relate to what happens. And in that space, suffering softens. Eighth, right concentration. Finally, this is about developing the ability to rest the mind on one thing with steadiness and calm. It's not about zoning out or escaping reality. It's about building a mind that is stable enough to see clearly. A peaceful mind can notice the truth that a restless mind constantly overlooks. Put these 8 together, and you have a path, not to escape life, but to meet it with wisdom. And maybe you've noticed, none of these steps require you to be perfect. You don't have to renounce the world, shave your head, or move to a monastery. You can practice this path right in the middle of your everyday life, at work, at home, while raising children, while cooking dinner.
Because the Eightfold Path isn't about control. It's about clarity. It's about dropping the exhausting need to force life into a shape it was never meant to hold, and instead flowing with it, step by step, moment by moment. Think of a stream flowing down a mountain. It doesn't force its way. It simply moves, steady and patient. And yet, over time, it wears down even the hardest rock. That's the strength of this path. Gentle, steady, transformative. So let me ask you, where in your life are you still trying to control everything? Where are you still exhausting yourself by clinging to an image, a story, or an outcome? And what might shift if, instead of clinging, you began to walk this path, not with force, but with clarity? The Buddha didn't ask, "What do you want out of life?" He asked something deeper. What will you do when you realize that nothing you cling to can save you? That question isn't meant to frighten you. It's meant to free you. Because when you stop living to protect an ego, something else appears. Honesty, stillness, kindness. You don't become perfect. You become real. And that is the quiet strength of the Noble Eightfold Path.
Part 6. The meaning of community and compassion. One of the greatest misunderstandings about spiritual practice is the belief that it's only about me, my peace, my enlightenment, my freedom from suffering. But the deeper you walk on this path, the clearer it becomes. True awakening is never just for yourself. It naturally overflows, touching everyone around you. The Buddha himself didn't practice in isolation forever. Yes, he sat under the Bodhi tree alone, but when he awakened, his very first impulse was to share what he had discovered, not for his benefit, but for the benefit of all beings. And in the same way, our practice isn't meant to build a private sanctuary where we escape from the world. It's meant to open our hearts so wide that the well-being of others becomes inseparable from our own. This is where compassion comes in. Compassion isn't pity. It isn't feeling sorry for people from a distance. Compassion is the deep, courageous wish that others be free from suffering, whether it's a friend, a stranger, or even someone we struggle to love. But here's the key. Compassion without wisdom can be blind. We might rush to help, but without clarity, we sometimes cause more harm than good. On the other hand, wisdom without compassion can become cold, sharp in insight, but lacking warmth. That's why the two must grow together, like the two wings of a bird. Without both, we cannot fly. So, what does this look like in everyday life? It means remembering that every word we speak matters. Our words can be seeds of peace or seeds of division. A careless comment can wound someone for years, while a kind word at the right moment can heal a heart. The same is true with our actions. Every choice, how we work, how we spend, how we treat those around us, sends ripples out into the community. Think about it. How many times has your day been lifted by something small? A smile from a stranger, a moment of genuine listening, a hand reaching out to help? And how many times has your day been darkened by a harsh word, a broken promise, or someone's indifference? These ripples are real. They shape not only our own lives, but the atmosphere we all share. The Buddhist teaching of the Noble Eightfold Path isn't just about personal liberation, it's about collective well-being. When we practice right speech, right action, right livelihood, not only do we protect our own hearts from regret, we also reduce the suffering of others. When we practice mindfulness, we don't just calm our own minds, we create a calmer presence that others can feel. And when we live with compassion, we help build a community where kindness is possible, even in a world often filled with fear and division. I once met a woman who had gone through tremendous loss. Her husband passed away, her finances collapsed, and her health was failing. She told me that the only thing that kept her going was the kindness of her neighbors. One person brought her food, another sat with her in silence. Someone else helped her fix her broken fence. None of these acts solved her problems, but together they reminded her she wasn't alone. And sometimes that reminder is the most powerful medicine we can give. So let me ask you, how often do you see your own life as connected to the lives around you?
How often do you pause before speaking, not just to check if it's true, but to ask, will this word increase peace or add to suffering? Compassion isn't about saving the whole world by yourself. It's about showing up where you are, in the small moments that matter. It's about recognizing that your freedom and the freedom of others are bound together. And here's something profound. When you live this way, your own suffering lightens. Because the more you expand your heart to include others, the less room there is for fear, anger, and isolation. The walls of the ego start to dissolve, and what's left is connection, real, living connection. The Buddha once said, "As a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so should one cultivate boundless love toward all beings." Imagine what it would be like if we carried even a fraction of that love into our daily lives, toward the people we agree with, and just as much toward the people we don't. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It doesn't mean you'll never get angry, never feel impatient, never stumble. It means you practice returning, again and again, to compassion as your guiding light. And every time you do, you are not only transforming yourself, you are also helping to transform the collective atmosphere of suffering we all share. So the invitation is simple. Live in a way that makes the world lighter, not heavier. Let your words be kind, your actions thoughtful, your presence healing. See that your enlightenment, your awakening, is not separate from the awakening of others. Because in the end, we don't walk this path alone. We walk it together. And the more compassion and wisdom we bring into our communities, the closer we all come to freedom.
Part 7. What truly matters? Freedom from suffering. If life is short, if everything we hold eventually slips away, then the question becomes, what truly matters? Is it wealth? No, because wealth can vanish in a single market crash. Is it fame? No, because fame fades as quickly as it arrives. Is it even happiness? Not the kind of happiness that depends on conditions. That kind of happiness is fragile, disappearing the moment circumstances change. According to the Buddha, what truly matters, the one thing worth devoting our lives to, is freedom. Freedom from suffering. This freedom has a name, Nibbana or Nirvana. But let's strip away the mystery for a moment. Nirvana isn't some faraway paradise. It's not a reward after death or a mystical place you have to travel to. It's a state of mind, a deep, unshakable peace that isn't touched by birth, aging, sickness, or death. Think about what usually disturbs your peace. It always comes back to the same three poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion. Greed makes us chase endlessly. Hatred hardens our hearts, turning pain into bitterness. Delusion keeps us confused, clinging to what is impermanent as if it could last. The Buddha taught that when these three fires go out, the mind becomes still, clear, open, free, not numb, not empty, but deeply at peace. I once heard someone describe it this way. Imagine carrying a heavy pack on your back. Inside are stones labeled, I want, I hate, I fear. You've been carrying it so long, you've forgotten what it feels like to be without it. Then, one day, you set it down. That moment of release, that lightness, that relief is a glimpse of nirvana. So how do we move toward that freedom? By cultivating two essential qualities, wisdom and compassion. Wisdom isn't just knowing facts or reading sacred texts. It's seeing directly into the nature of life. It's recognizing the truth of the Four Noble Truths, that suffering arises from craving, that everything is impermanent, that there is no fixed self to cling to. This kind of wisdom isn't theoretical. It comes alive through practice, through watching your own mind. When you see a craving rise and fall, you begin to understand. When you notice anger dissolve, you begin to understand, and little by little, wisdom grows. But wisdom alone isn't enough. Without compassion, wisdom becomes cold, detached, almost inhuman. That's why compassion must grow alongside it. Compassion is the deep care for the well-being of others, even when they're hard to love.
It's the recognition that we're all caught in the same fragile web of impermanence, all trying, in our own clumsy ways, to be free from suffering. Compassion without wisdom can be blind, burning itself out by trying to fix everything. Wisdom without compassion can be sharp but heartless. But together they form a balance. Together they guide us toward true freedom. And here's something many people shy away from. Death is one of our greatest teachers. The Buddha often reminded his disciples to reflect on death daily, not to terrify them, but to wake them up. He would say, "You could die in the time it takes to breathe in and out." That might sound grim, but it's actually liberating. Because when you realize life could end at any moment, you stop wasting time. You stop clinging to what doesn't matter. You stop putting off the things that truly do. Ask yourself, if today were your last day, what would still feel unfinished? What words would you wish you had spoken? What kindness would you wish you had given? What dream would you regret leaving behind? Death strips away our illusions and leaves only the essential. And the essential is this: live wisely, live fully, live free from suffering, starting now. Some philosophies, like existentialism, tell us that life has no meaning, and so it's up to us to invent one. But Buddhism offers something different. It doesn't just ask us to create meaning, it invites us to go beyond the entire question of meaning. Because when suffering ends, you don't need life to mean anything. You are free. Life is short, but short doesn't mean small. It's long enough to wake up, long enough to practice, long enough to discover what really matters. Each breath becomes a chance to return. Each moment becomes a doorway to wisdom and kindness. So, live with care. Don't wait. Don't postpone your own freedom. Don't let the fire of craving and hatred burn up your precious time. The goal is not to live forever. The goal is to live wisely, to live fully, to live free. And that journey doesn't start tomorrow. It starts now.
Conclusion: living fully in the time we have. So here we are. We've traveled through impermanence, the illusion of the self, the freedom of letting go, the beauty of mindfulness, the clarity of the Eightfold Path, the power of compassion, and the promise of true liberation. And now we return to the most important truth of all: life is short. But short doesn't mean small. Short doesn't mean meaningless. It means that life is precious. Precious enough not to waste. Precious enough to wake up. Precious enough to live with wisdom and compassion here and now. Think about it. A candle may only burn for a short time, but while it burns, it gives light. A flower may only blossom for a season, but while it blooms, it brings beauty. In the same way, our lives, however brief, are long enough to awaken, long enough to love, long enough to free ourselves from the chains of suffering. The goal was never to live forever. The goal is to live wisely, to live clearly, to live fully, to walk through this world with a mind free from fear and a heart open with compassion. Ask yourself, what really matters to you in this short life? Is it the trophies, the titles, the possessions? Or is it the way you show up for others? The way you soften instead of harden? The way you live in truth instead of illusion? Because in the end, the question isn't, how long did you live? The question is, how deeply? And here's the beauty. It's never too late. Whether you are 25 or 65, you have this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, enough to begin, enough to shift, enough to wake up. Life doesn't ask us to be perfect. It only asks us to be present, to bring wisdom where there was ignorance, to bring compassion where there was indifference, to bring clarity where there was confusion. That is the path. That is the invitation. So as you step away from this video and back into your own life, I invite you to carry this question with you. Am I living fully,
wisely and compassionately right now. Because this very moment is the only one that's guaranteed. And if you found something here today that spoke to your heart, I encourage you to take it further. Reflect on it. Share it with someone you love. Practice it, even in the smallest ways. And if you'd like to keep exploring these timeless teachings together, consider subscribing, liking this video, and joining this community. Not for me, but for yourself, so that you can be gently reminded again and again of what truly matters. Life is short, but it is long enough. Long enough to awaken, long enough to practice, long enough to live wisely, fully, and free. So don't wait. Begin now.